Every once in a while, a build comes along that subverts the expectations of everyone. Some kind of off-meta setup of weapons or armor that, for some reason or another, is an embodiment of efficacy. When these builds come together, two thoughts flood a player's mind, depending on whether you are the giver or the receiver of this build. If the giver, the thought is, "Oh yes, this I like. This will be my kryptonite against the abusers of the easiest builds. I shall run this assimilation of obscurity into the ground." Or, if you are the receiver, emotions of confusion, disgust, or frustration will tempt you into anger or tilt. While this isn't always the case, a player who has spent far too much time in this game will, unconsciously, wrap their self-worth around their performance. The thought, if given time to introspect long enough to become describable, would be, if I had spent so many hours trying to be the very best, only to be disrespected by something I hold in such low esteem, have I wasted my time here? Either they will laugh it off, and realize they've been taking this silly little game too seriously, and congratulate the off-meta player for their creativity. Or they will get mad, and spew forth as many excuses as they can, accusing the off-meta player of somehow cheesing the game, or playing it in a less skillful way. Which is true. Both. Welcome to Stupid Builds, where I will show you some stupid builds. Some of these builds are our own creation, some are from our live stream chat, but all of them are stupid because of how strong they secretly are. The Traveler's Chosen is an unbelievably underappreciated powerhouse of a sidearm. Ability regeneration, weapon stats, damage flexibility. It is the one-size-fits-all of weapons for many builds, but today, it plays sous chef to my new favorite Chef Ramsay of Bombardiers. What the hell was that analogy? Who's writing this garbage? I have seen many a player propose to us the prospect of combining the Bombardiers with a new Strand Hunter aspect that creates strand clones upon dodging. The idea being that if one explosion is funny, then two is Comedy Central gold. My hesitation has always been that when I see other players trying to pull this little stunt on me, it's, well, let's just say less effective than screen doors on submarines. But oh, how my opinion has changed once behind the wheel of this string bean meme generating 3 threadlings and a trenchcoat machine. With the proper spacing and timing, the combined explosive funny of the Bombardiers and the Strand clone is enough to clean out multiple Guardians at once. Better still is that if by some misplaced miracle your targets are able to evade or survive the main Guardian Nuker 9000, they will undoubtedly be accosted by a small tribe of pissed-off threadlings. Thus, we return to the Traveler's Chosen. This sidearm grants us, effectively, 20% of all ability energy after a kill. This allows us to use our double dip of Grapple Hook, Threaded Spike, or, of course, our explosive clone dodge far more often. Now you, viewer, need to understand something. If you are bold enough and cool enough to give such a build as this a try, this build is not going to be the best build known to mankind, unlike what some other YouTube videos may try to sell you on, but rather this build is purely for sending a message. Nothing is quite as humiliating and demoralizing as being killed by an explosive training dummy being fart out by a hunter whose head isn't on quite right. Does that mean this build is unusable, or a bad choice? Absolutely not! Especially against an overly eager group of shotgun apes. This build is a superb way to sit players down and demand that they respect your space. But just know what you're getting into. For my secondary, I tried this with a fusion rifle with surplus and wellspring. There are likely more viable options in the sniper category, but experiment and see what works best for you. As for my mods, I ran with as much ability regenerating items as I could, but I also think pairing this setup with mods like Dynamo and Distribution aren't terrible either, as you will be frequently using your class abilities near enemies. For fragments, I will only suggest 3 as being required for optimal success. Generation for more grenade uptime, Continuity for longer sever effects from Bombardiers, and Evolution for better threadling efficacy. Perhaps try this with Thread of Warding for woven mail on orb pickup from the Reaper mod on your cloak. No matter what you try, if you really lean into the gag of blowing people up with your dodges and develop a good sense of when players are going to slide in on you, you will find success and hate mail with this build. That I can promise. I will give this build 3 Hollow Knights out of 9 Silk Songs. Ace of Spades has never really fallen completely out of the meta. It is the hand cannon of hand cannons. Indeed, but with how dominant the more extreme ranged weapons are right now, such as SMGs and pulses, it is somewhat of a rare sight to see this staple of a weapon anymore. Well, if you are a hand cannon enthusiast, and a warlock, I have the build for you to try. Chromatic Fire now adds our subclass-specific verbs to its explosions on any precision headshot kills we get. Do you know what else gets explosions on headshot kills in the kinetic slot? With the two of these in combination, we create a sort of freezer burn effect on all nearby victims to the blast created from our hand cannon. Not only dealing an exceptional amount of damage, but also slowing and making survivors easy for cleanup. We pair this with a shotgun with quick draw for good close range tools, and now we have an answer to all the Graviton Lands campers staking out together singing Kumbaya. The concept of turning another player's head into an explosive barrel, much to the dismay of the enemy team, is, what's another word for hilarious? I feel like I've used that one too much. Hysterical. Yeah, that's good. But what if we can go even further with this idea? Follow with me for a second. What other exotics do we know about in the kinetic slot that benefit from landing crits? An exotic that benefits from dealing damage to the slowed targets we will be manufacturing from the Chromatic Fire? I wish I could tell you, but I have no time to explain. I feel physically ill from that one, sorry. Yes, the no time to explain. Another not really that off-meta of an exotic option, but with every lobby filled with the sound of a dubstep black hole shooting pulse rifle, I think we will make an allowance for ourselves. With No Time, we not only gain the already baked-in synergy of headshots getting our little portal buddy up, and the option to get this from frozen or slowed targets from our subclass, but we also get these benefits to chain into themselves with the Chromatic Fire. It's genius! Good gracious, I could see this being an unbelievable ad control tool in PvE as well. For aspects and fragments, I use Frost Pulse and Ice Flare Bolts. Try this with the fragments Torment, Rending, Hedrons, and Refractions, but feel free to leave a comment if you find something better. This build is despicable. Both of them. I give them 11 ice cubes out of 7... Ice cube? What? Oh, I see. I get it. A quick heads up. I have heard if you subscribe somewhere, people get burritos. And you've made it this far anyway, right? So it turns out the Sweet Business explosive shots shoot through walls. Can't say I'm surprised, because that weapon is hungry for any chance to create war crimes. So why not feed it? If you have ever made the extremely original and downright cringy joke that you sexually identify as an attack helicopter, now is your chance to prove it. Grab your Sweet Business and a Solar Warlock and get to the burr. Using the aspect Heat Rises and Icarus Dash, we can position our long-range meat grinder into positions that no reasonable guardian should ever suspect heavy artillery. But we have a problem. Reloading really kills our fun. So what if we just didn't? Rain of Fire Boots grants us a free and full reload whenever we use our Icarus Dash. This allows us to completely negate the Sweet Business's primary weakness while maintaining aggressive positioning. For my secondary, I went with an auto-loading grenade launcher. The logic here is that being that my enemies are cowering from cover behind what thin shred of hope they may have, I can bank shot some explosive Geneva suggestions to them, and finish them off. For the rest of your build, I highly recommend you lean into your grenade regeneration, as it is the best way to maintain aerial superiority over the poor slobs on the receiving end of the warm embrace of 900 rounds per minute. This includes a bit of hindsight on my part, as I should have been running firebolts for better uptime. But as for the fragments, the simple Searing, Ashes, Mercy, and Resolve are fine. This build is silly, and I love it. 4 pina coladas out of 8 margaritas. I am slightly ashamed to say that one of the exotics we did not do our due diligence on testing after its change was the sealed Ahamkara grasps. The grasps now will grant us better speed and weapon stats after powered melee final blows. For most use cases that is rather pointless still, but on Arc Hunter, it has a shot of being terrific. We ran these gauntlets with the Monte Carlo for more assured uptime on our melees, and for said melees, we ran it with the uppercutter Tempest Strike. These two work rather well with each other, and despite being on a more open map, Blink Hunter forgives a lot of bad positioning sins. Despite this obvious synergy, I still found myself leaning mostly on the slug shotgun and a basic knuckle across the enemy's jaw to get the job done. But I believe there is something to be said about having your build towards a specific, albeit mostly unobtainable goal. It created a sort of mini-game in which I was constantly getting in the close and personal space of every Guardian, praying that I might be able to get a slide melee to land the final blow. I was like an overly aggressive salesman, except my product of choice was death. I did learn something about the Monte Carlo throughout my escapade. The Monte, I swear, feels better with this Western Front ornament on. If you happen to have this ornament for this weapon, try it and see if you feel the same thing. My mods were the basic unflinching and targeting mods most PvP builds are set up with, and I heavily focused my stats towards melee uptime. My fragments were Momentum, Recharge, Magnitude, and Shock. Do be sure to run the Arc Seasonal Artifact perks if you try this build. They really helped. I give this build 2 G Towers out of 4 G Towers. Titans, we love you, but today we are simply here to remind you of a synergy that we have already spoken on, but feel the need to remind you of. Vigilance Wing, in my professional opinion, feels like a suboptimal choice of pulse rifle when compared to the buffet of better options currently running the meta. However, it possesses one key attribute that sets it apart and gives it the edge specifically in 6v6 environments. The Vigilance Wing's exotic perk grants the wielder health and movement speed on ally death. This allows you to engage in team fights and become a sort of avenger of blood to anyone who dies during the exchange of lead and space magic. This perk alone is powerful enough to keep the Vigilance Wing viable in this Graviton Lance and Immortal-driven meta. But we have another trick up our sleeve. With the Aeon Cult's exotics with the mod Sect of Vigor, we also gain a boost of barricade energy whenever an ally dies. Combine this with a Sentinel Titan's Overshield barricade, and we have turned our punch person into a void-flavored necromancer. Slam barricades down like it's Christmas. Out-team shot enemies and go for blood when your teammates die. It's quite poetic, actually. I ran this with a slug shotgun for close-range options and fragments, persistence, and starvation. Yes, of course, there were more, but with a Reaper mod, a common theme it seems nowadays, we can get Devour extremely often, and Persistence keeps our Overshield up for longer. And we will have a lot of them, so why not? The rest is up to you. Subscribe if you want more bi-weekly stupid builds. Bless your faces, and deuces.